It might be helpful to discuss real quick about the different questions we get during when people are contacting us for property management services. And there's a difference in the questions between someone who has never used a property management company and those who are actually currently firing their current property management solution and contacting us, hoping that we'll take over the property. Because there are different questions. And the reason why I think it might be helpful is maybe it'll help you, a rental property owner who's looking for a property management company, to have a good idea about maybe what questions to ask. Again, an experienced landlord who's been using a property management company is going to have different questions than somebody who's never done this before. They're quite possibly going to have more accurate questions. Maybe we could benefit from their experience. So a common question that we get from rental property owners that have never used a property management company before is they're often very concerned. Not often, actually, it's somewhat infrequent, but it does come up on a monthly basis. They're a little bit nervous that we might, you can tell they ask questions that kind of relate to this, that we might intentionally take a tenant who we know is going to not stay in the property for a long period of time. So I think the property owners are identifying that there's a leasing fee, which property management companies typically charge. They're going to charge you anywhere from half a month's rent to a full month's rent would be very common to find a tenant. So if the property is vacant and needs a tenant, the property management company is going to likely have in their agreement, this is similar to what a real estate agent would have, that they're going to get 1 month's rent or, again, half a month's rent. And that's a concern to the owners because it's a big expense. And they're concerned that you're somehow going to manipulate the environment to where a tenant is coming in and you're going to intentionally select a tenant that's not going to stay as long. So that actually doesn't come up with anyone who's been using property management company for a while, because that's really not really a thing. So it's just not saying that it's not a thing with my company. It's not. And I'm just not saying it's not a thing with property managers because they're so, the industry is so stellar and we're just above any such, low behavior like that. It's just not a thing that could really easily occur in a leasing process. So, I mean, any company of size would have a leasing process. It would be very difficult to isolate individuals that actually are looking for just a 1-year lease. Our tenants, average tenant stays 3.3 years. So that's our average tenant stay. And that's just slightly above what other national property management companies typically tenant stays. They're typically 2 point, I forget what the actual number is, from what I hear from other property managers and the actual statistics. Again, it's just not something that would actually occur with a property management company just because it would be really difficult to kind of isolate. You'd have to interview a potential tenant. You'd have to ask them like how long you're planning on staying, and then you'd have to block a potential tenant that is saying that they want to stay for years, because most tenants are trying to sell themselves. And they're often going to tell you that they're going to stay for many, many years, even though they might intend on not. So it's not really going to be, it's going to be pretty rare for a tenant to say, hey, I just need a place for 10 months or 12 months. So it'd be really difficult for a property management company to actually create a process that would actually isolate this. Or they would have to have multiple people applying at the same time. The one person would have to be saying, hey, I want to stay for 3 years. The other one would have to be saying, I want to stay for 12 years. The property management company is saying, hey, this is a profit center for me. I can make money off the leasing fee, and then go ahead and take the person that actually only wants the 12-month lease, hoping they can get their leasing fee again in 12 months. But for some property management companies like ours, it's actually not a profit center. We list our properties to the MLS, and 73% of our properties are rented through outside agents. And so my property management company, we have to pay that outside agent a commission. So we actually don't want your property vacant. And I don't think many property management companies are super excited to have it vacant. So I don't know if that question is something that someone who's been using a property management company doesn't seem to come front to mind for them. But it certainly does with someone who's never used a property management company. So the questions we actually get, so the complaints we actually get, so I would call that a concern. When folks are leaving property management company, I would call the reason why they're leaving property management company would be complaints. Typically, their complaints are over maintenance issues. So often they will feel that the property management company is being incredibly under-responsive, meaning they're not taking care of repairs in a timely manner, or they're not doing it correctly, or they're not informing the owner. So there's a difference between being concerned about the expense and, again, the expense shifts to being concerned over maintenance. So when you're actually interviewing your property management companies or prospective property management companies you're interested in hiring, I would definitely try to get an idea about what their maintenance process is. Do they have an in-house maintenance company? Meaning, do they actually have different, handy people and plumbers and electricians that are working, for them as employees or staff? Or do they own a third-party, maintenance company? Often it's, property management company is actually going to refer jobs out, but come to find out they actually own the entity they're referring it out. Now, legally, and I'm not an attorney, I can't give you legal advice, but legally they should be giving you an arm's length addendum. So you have a legal right to know what other companies or property management owns, because when they refer it, obviously you need to understand that they quite possibly are motivated to refer that company. I would definitely speak and spend some time talking about how are maintenance issues handled. How am I notified? How am I part of this process? How much control do I actually have? Where do your vendors come from? Vendors being contractors, electricians, plumbers, etc. Really get to the bottom of that, because that actually, again, we get a huge source of business from other property management companies because of that. We get evictions from other property management companies because the other property management companies here in Philadelphia, there are good property management companies here in Philadelphia besides my own. But there's a lot of Philadelphia's a big city, so we have a lot of property management companies and just some really horrible property management companies here. And they do poor screening. So we'll get a lot of property management clients because folks are forced into eviction because the property management company didn't screen or place the tenants properly. And we get a huge amount of property management clients from other companies because of these maintenance concerns that the owners have. So they've been, issues just with running toilets that have been left unchecked for months and months, and the owner just keeps getting hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. Like the one owner was getting $400 water bills every month and just kept reaching out to the property management company. Finally, come to find out it was just a running toilet that the property management company just wasn't reactive to. They just were not really concerned about it. That would upset me too if I was a landlord, rental property owner as well. All right. So, again, if I were spending my time looking for a property management company, I would definitely go through online reviews. I would ask questions relative to how maintenance is handled. I would ask questions on how screening is handled. I wouldn't be as concerned about the leasing question. It's just not something I could see a property management company, good or bad, really being able to manipulate accurately. All right. As always, I'm just a humble Philadelphia property management company owner doing my very best to answer your rental property investing questions. And as always, happy rental property investing.